I want you to try and imagine something for a second. Imagine trying to completely, just totally erase yourself from existence.
Right. And not just, packing a bag and tossing your phone in a river so you could disappear into the night.
Exactly. Think about the meticulous, exhausting effort of scrubbing away every single detail of who you are. Right down to like taking a razor blade and slicing the tiny manufacturing tags off the collar of your shirt.
It's almost unimaginable. I mean, we leave traces everywhere, often without even thinking about it. A receipt in a pocket, a fingerprint on a glass.
Yeah, or the specific wear pattern on your shoes.
Exactly. So to actively unmake your identity, to ensure that absolutely nothing ties you to a name or a place, well, that requires a state of mind and a level of dedication that most of us just simply cannot fathom.
But that is the reality of the Isdal Woman. So welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are heading into one of modern history's most enduring and frankly perplexing unsolved mysteries.
We really are.
Yeah.
And we're doing it by pulling from a super wide range of sources today. We've got declassified Norwegian police files, journalistic accounts from the BBC and NRK.
And some incredible modern forensic data from hospital archives here.
Yeah, and crucially, a really fascinating clinical essay from a mental health professional that, honestly, it takes everything we thought we knew about this Cold War-era puzzle and just flips it completely on its head.
I cannot wait to get into that part. But let's set the scene first. It's November 1970 in a remote, freezing Norwegian valley near the city of Bergen.
And this deep dive is going to challenge how you look at evidence, because the exact same clues can point to a glamorous, high-stakes, international espionage thriller.
Or a profoundly heartbreaking human tragedy.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so November 29th, 1970, a father and his two young daughters are out for a hike in Isdalen Valley. And I should mention, this is a rugged, really unforgiving area.
Yeah, locals literally called it Death Valley.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Death Valley?
Yeah. It had this dark history of medieval suicides and, more recently, hikers just getting lost in the dense fog and falling down the ski slopes. It is a very imposing place.
Okay, so they're hiking in Death Valley, and nestled among the rocks in a small clearing, they stumble upon the charred remains of a woman.
And when the police arrive, they are immediately confronted with a scene that just defies basic logic. I mean, let's start with the physical state of the body.
Right, because it was super bizarre.
Completely. She was found in what forensic investigators call a boxer position. Basically, when a body is exposed to extreme heat, the muscles contract and pull the limbs inward.
So she looked like a prize fighter with her hands up.
Exactly. And that part is pretty typical for fire victims. But the fire damage itself was completely asymmetrical. She was heavily burned on her front, but her back was largely untouched.
As if she had thrown herself backward, away from the flames.
Yes, and her face and most of her hair were entirely unrecognizable. Plus, she was mostly undressed.
Which just doesn't make any sense. Like, wearing only a few articles of clothing on a freezing November day in the Norwegian mountains.
It makes no sense at all. But the physical trauma was really just the beginning. The intentional destruction of her identity is what elevated this case into a legend.
Oh, the tags.
The tags. Every single identifying label had been methodically cut out of her clothes.
And any stamps or marks on her belongings, anything that could be traced back to a manufacturer, a tailor, or an owner, they were aggressively scraped off.
Yeah. And the entire clearing was curated. I mean, that's really the only word for it.
Curated how?
Well, forensic investigator Tormod Baines noted that the items around her weren't just dropped in a struggle or tossed aside casually. Her jewelry and her watch weren't on her body. They were placed right beside her on the ground in a way that looked almost ceremonial.
And the watch was stopped at exactly 10:10. Oddly, it looked like it had never even been worn.
Right. And alongside that jewelry, the police cataloged a broken umbrella, some empty bottles of alcohol, and the remains of rubber boots and nylon stockings.
Plus, the soil beneath her tested positive for petrol, indicating an accelerant was heavily poured and ignited.
Which brings us to the autopsy, which just adds a whole new layer of confusion. The pathologist found between 50 and 70 foreign sleeping pills in her stomach.
Wow. 50 to 70.
Yeah, a barbiturate brand called Phenomel. But the crucial detail there is the metabolism of those pills. They had not fully absorbed into her bloodstream yet.
So she must have ingested them very shortly before she died.
Exactly. But simultaneously, her blood showed highly lethal concentrations of carbon monoxide, and there were dense smoke particles trapped deep in her lungs.
Wait, carbon monoxide and smoke in the lungs? So she didn't die from the overdose before the fire started. She was actively breathing while she was burning.
Yes. She was deeply sedated, but she was alive. They also documented a mysterious, unexplained bruise on the right side of her neck.
Which could indicate a blow, or maybe just a fall against the rocks.
Right, it's unclear. The autopsy also noted she had never been pregnant, which was one of the few definitive facts they could actually establish about her life.
You know, looking at this crime scene, it's like looking at an anti-treasure map.
Oh, I like that. What do you mean?
Well, usually a crime scene is full of clues meant to be found, even if they're left accidentally. You know, a dropped receipt, a fingerprint, a stray hair. But whoever engineered this scene, whether it was her or someone else, meticulously built a puzzle that only leads to dead ends. Every clue is just a locked door.
That is a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And because that anti-treasure map offered absolutely zero identity, the Bergen police were forced to work backward. I mean, they had a woman with no face, no fingerprints on her person, and no clothing tags.
So they had to trace the few anonymous items found near her to see if they could find a thread to pull.
Exactly. That meant canvassing the city's transport hubs, just hoping she left something behind.
And that actually pays off at the Bergen railway station, right?
It does. A few days after the discovery in the valley, police locate 2 suitcases in the left luggage department. And they manage to tie them to the Isdal Woman because of a single partial fingerprint found on a pair of prescription-free sunglasses inside one of the bags.
And the contents of these suitcases were literally like props from a spy movie.
Oh, completely. Investigators pulled out multiple wigs, high-quality clothing, and a significant amount of varied foreign currencies. German marks, Norwegian kroner, Belgian francs, British pounds, and Swiss francs.
Just stacks of cash for traveling across borders. And the absolute dedication to erasing her identity continued inside that luggage, too.
Yeah, the eczema cream.
Right. They found a tube of eczema cream, and the prescription sticker, the one that would normally display the doctor's name, the pharmacy, and the patient's name, it had been completely removed.
I mean, think about the physical effort it takes to scrape a tightly glued sticker off a curved metal tube, just to make sure you remain a ghost. It requires a highly methodical, almost obsessive state of mind.
But there was one slip-up in those suitcases. Police found a simple plastic bag from Oscar Rootvet's footwear store located in the city of Stavanger.
Finally, a geographical lead. So the police head to that shoe shop, and the owner's son actually remembers her.
Yes. He confirms she bought a pair of rubber boots, the exact model found half melted at the crime scene.
And he remembered her clearly because she took an unusually long time to pick them out. He described her as very well dressed, speaking English with an accent, and he specifically noted that she carried a very strong, distinct smell of garlic.
Garlic, okay. And that physical description was the key that unlocked her movements across the country.
Right. By tracing her description through hotel registries, police discovered she had been hopping across Norway and Europe using at least 8 different fake names.
Genevieve Lancier, Claudia Tielt, Fenella Lork, Alexia Zarni-Machez. She was filling out check-in cards claiming to be from Louvain, Brussels, Ghent, Antwerp.
And the hotel staff remembered her. Like a 21-year-old waitress at the Hotel Neptune in Bergen, Alfhild Ranges. She recalled the woman's elegance and self-assuredness. The woman even gave her a knowing wink.
A wink. That's so cinematic.
I know. The waitress also specifically noted that the woman was sitting near German Navy personnel in the dining room.
But her behavior inside the hotel rooms was highly unusual, right?
Oh, super erratic. She frequently requested room changes. At one particular hotel, she demanded to change rooms 3 separate times during a single, very short stay.
And maids reported that she was constantly rearranging the heavy furniture in her rooms, like dragging armoires around.
Yeah. And then, nestled among her belongings, the police find the holy grail of any investigation, a notepad filled with handwritten codes.
Boom. A coded ledger.
But the Bergen police were actually able to crack this code relatively quickly by looking for patterns. It wasn't some complex cryptographic cipher, it was just an itinerary.
How did it work?
Well, they realized that the first letter corresponded to a month, and the numbers to dates. So a line reading 022-028P meant she was in Paris from October 22nd to the 28th. 029S meant she traveled to Stavanger on the 29th. It was a meticulous log of her movements.
Okay, so let's lay this all out. We have a woman traveling with multiple passports, fake names, wigs, and stacks of foreign currency. She's keeping coded ledgers, sitting near military personnel, and constantly changing hotel rooms.
Right, and you have to view those elements through the lens of 1970. The Cold War is freezing over Europe, paranoia is incredibly high, and Bergen was home to several critical military installations and weapons testing sites.
Which is why the Norwegian intelligence services got involved.
Exactly. They actually investigated credible reports that she had been seen observing military rockets being tested in western Norway. So for decades, the dominant theory, the one that absolutely gripped the public and the press, was that the Isdal Woman was a foreign intelligence agent, a spy.
Okay, I hear that, but I really have to push back on the spy theory.
Go for it.
Because think about it. If you are a highly trained covert agent for the KGB or Mossad or whoever, why are you walking around in obvious wigs? Why do you smell so strongly of garlic that a random shoe salesman remembers you weeks later?
Fair point.
And why are you drawing the intense scrutiny of hotel staff by demanding to move rooms 3 times and dragging heavy furniture across the floor? Not to mention writing down your secret locations in a basic substitution code that local beat cops can crack in a few days. That is, frankly, terrible spycraft.
It really is. And the clinical essay from our source stack takes that exact skepticism and applies a medical lens to it.
Oh, this is the paradigm shift. Let's get into this.
Yeah. What if the evidence that points to international espionage actually points to something far more internal? The clinician argues that the Isdal Woman was not a spy at all.
But rather a vulnerable person suffering from severe, untreated mental illness.
Exactly. Likely schizophrenia or bipolar-induced mania, and experiencing intense, terrifying delusions of persecution.
So how does that clinical lens change the clues we just talked about? Like, what about the fake IDs and the codes?
Well, to a true crime consumer, a coded ledger screams James Bond. But to a psychiatrist, those are the tools of someone who is genuinely terrified, fleeing imagined pursuers. People in the grip of severe paranoia will go to immense illogical lengths to keep themselves safe.
And what about the fake passports? Weren't those hard to get?
Not really. In the 1970s, you didn't need state backing to get a fake passport. Anyone with a basic printing press and a bit of cash could acquire one in most major European transit hubs.
Okay, what about the erratic hotel behavior? Moving the furniture, demanding new rooms.
It is textbook paranoid behavior. If you genuinely believe your room is bugged, or that someone is going to come to the adjoining door, or, I don't know, that a sniper is aiming at the window, you move the heavy furniture to block the entryways.
Wow.
Yeah. You demand a new room because you think the current one is compromised. It's a desperate attempt to exert control over a terrifying reality.
That clinical angle makes perfect sense for the paranoia, but I'm struggling to square that with the shoe salesman's report. He said she smelled strongly of garlic and body odor. Other witnesses mentioned this too.
Right, the hygiene issue.
Yeah. If she's someone who cares enough to wear elegant clothes and buy expensive boots, why the severe drop in personal hygiene?
Because extreme fight-or-flight anxiety severely overrides executive function, including personal hygiene.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When your brain is chemically convinced you are in mortal danger 24 hours a day, taking a shower or putting on deodorant falls to the absolute bottom of your survival priority list. The stress sweat itself actually changes chemically.
That's wild.
You can be someone who previously loved fashion and perfume, but in the grip of an acute psychotic episode, all of that just falls away.
We also have to look at the historical context of the 1970s. Like, why was she just wandering across European borders completely alone? The clinician brings up the deinstitutionalization movement in the sources.
Yeah, think of deinstitutionalization like tearing down a massive dam before you've dug any irrigation canals. Throughout the late 60s and 70s, Western countries began shutting down long-term psychiatric hospitals.
Right. The noble idea was to treat patients in the community rather than locking them away.
Exactly. But the community infrastructure, the local clinics, the supported housing, simply didn't exist yet. So thousands of severely ill people just flooded out into society. Transient, vulnerable, and totally unsupported.
So she may have been one of those people just falling through the cracks of a changing medical system.
It's highly likely.
But travel isn't cheap. How did she afford the hotels, the nice clothes, the train tickets?
The clinician suggests a highly plausible theory for that too. Interstate sex work. She may have been operating as a high-class sex worker across European borders.
Which would perfectly explain the large sums of varied cash, the wigs, her sophisticated appearance.
And crucially, why the men she was seen dining with, like those naval officers we mentioned, never came forward to the police. It's a highly vulnerable profession, and sadly, it's not unusual for someone in that line of work to also be dealing with significant untreated mental health struggles.
Wow. That brings a whole new devastating context to that clearing in Death Valley. If she wasn't a spy being assassinated by a rival agency, how do we explain the fire, the missing tags, the 50 sleeping pills?
Through the clinical lens, it is a tragic suicide. People with severe, untreated mental illness are often in unimaginable psychological pain, and barbiturates like fentanyl were easily prescribed in the 70s, especially to women dealing with what doctors casually called nerves.
So she likely ingested the pills just to numb the pain.
Yes. The fire, the removed clothing tags, the scraped-off eczema cream, that was a desperate attempt to hide her identity from the monsters in her head, not from the KGB. She needed her imagined pursuers to believe she had completely vanished.
Just think about the disconnect there for you and me. We look at removed clothing tags and ciphered codes, and we are culturally trained by movies to think, oh, secret agent.
Right. James Bond.
But this clinician looks at the exact same removed tags and sees a woman in profound, terrifying psychological agony, trying to escape demons that only she could see.
It totally strips away the sexy thriller narrative and just leaves us with a profound human tragedy.
And for decades, this mystery was just frozen in time. The police hit a dead end, the public kept spinning spy theories, and the Isdal woman lay in an unmarked grave. But science eventually caught up.
It did. Back during the original 1970 autopsy, the doctors noted she had highly distinct dental work. 14 of her teeth had fillings, and she had several gold crowns, which was very unusual for dentistry in Norway at the time.
Right, and a local professor had kept her jaw for study, but over the years, the trail went cold.
Yeah. The rumor around the hospital was that the jaw got tossed in the trash because, quote, it was smelling.
Ugh. But in 2016, an investigative push by NRK journalists and a forensic doctor named Inge Morald led them deep into the cellar of Auckland University Hospital, and they actually found her preserved jaw just tucked away in the archives.
And that single discovery blew the case wide open, allowing them to apply modern forensic science. They started with isotope analysis on the teeth.
How does that work?
Well, think of your tooth enamel like a geological passport. As your adult teeth form in childhood, they lock in the exact chemical signature of your environment. The water you drink contains specific oxygen isotopes based on the region's rainfall.
Okay.
And the food you eat absorbs strontium isotopes from the local bedrock and soil. So by mapping those isotopes, scientists can literally point to the specific region of the world she grew up in.
That is incredible. And the hospital cellar held an even bigger secret, right? They didn't just have the jaw.
No. They discovered that tissue samples from her organs, her lungs, heart, ovaries, had been preserved in paraffin wax blocks at the hospital since 1970.
Which is huge for DNA.
Massive. Pathology archives often keep tissue in paraffin because the wax completely seals out moisture and bacteria, halting degradation. Because of that wax, forensic teams in 2016 were able to extract viable DNA from a 46-year-old sample.
And the DNA results were a massive breakthrough. They definitively proved she was of European descent. That single test immediately shut down the popular Cold War theory that she was an agent from the Israeli Mossad or from the Middle East.
Exactly. The isotopes combined with the DNA pinpointed her likely origins to the area around Nuremberg, Germany. But unfortunately, that's where the science hits a modern wall.
Right, because if we have her DNA and we know she's European, why haven't we found her family? I mean, it's the 2020s. People find long-lost cousins on ancestry websites every single day.
This is a massive, incredibly frustrating legal roadblock highlighted in our sources. Norwegian privacy law strictly prohibits the police from using commercial genealogy databases like 23andMe or Ancestry to track down relatives in criminal cases.
So they can't even upload the profile.
Nope. They can run her DNA against official European police databases for convicted criminals or formerly missing persons. But if her family hasn't committed a crime, or if they never formally reported her missing with an accompanying DNA sample, she remains a ghost in the machine.
It is such a frustrating reality. The exact sequence of code needed to give her her name back exists on a server somewhere right now, but the law keeps the door firmly locked.
It really does.
Which brings us to the end of her physical journey. In February 1971, the Isdal woman was buried. Because they suspected she might be European, they gave her a Catholic funeral. She was placed in a zinc-lined coffin.
And they chose zinc specifically because it prevents the body from decomposing, preserving her, just in case her family ever came looking.
She was buried in an unmarked grave at the Melendal Cemetery. The coffin was decorated with tulips and lilacs, but the only people in attendance were 18 police officers. No family, no friends, just the detectives who couldn't figure out who she was.
As consumers of true crime and mysteries, we love a puzzle. We love to connect the dots. But reading through these sources, there was a comment comparing the Isdal Woman to Elisa Lamb.
Oh, that's an interesting comparison.
Yeah, you might remember Elisa, the young woman with bipolar disorder whose tragic accidental death in a hotel water tank in Los Angeles was turned into this massive, supernatural internet frenzy about elevator demons and ghosts.
Yeah, people completely lost sight of the real person. And we have to ask ourselves, when we take real people who suffered immensely and turn them into international spies or paranormal mysteries, are we honoring their memory? Or are we just refusing to look at the uncomfortable reality of severe, untreated mental illness?
It's a really tough question. Maybe the Isdal woman's ultimate disguise wasn't the wig she put on or the tags she cut out.
Maybe it was the spy thriller fantasy that we projected onto her, just to make her lonely death a little easier to digest.
It certainly challenges us to look much closer at the narratives we consume and the humanity we might be overlooking.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the stories you're told, keep looking for the truth beneath the surface, and we will see you next time.